Welcome to this edition of the Press Police. I'm Mike Collins with you from New Jersey, and joining me now from Oregon is your Press Police expert, Ryan Williams, a New York University graduate from the School of Journalism, also our press ombudsman here on the filibuster. Ryan, good to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Alrighty, as we do talk about every week, media criticisms from the right. CNN always says that they're the number one place for politics and try to keep their coverage right down the middle. They will have a show now at 8 p.m. featuring Kathleen Parker, a conservative columnist, and Elliot Spitzer, the disgraced former governor of the state of New York who got caught up in a prostitution scandal. Do you see this as the fair and balanced debate that CNN should be striving for, Ryan?
Well, I see it as the perfect intersection of a declining news organization and a sleazy politician trying to get some legitimacy once again. They're going in at the 8 o'clock time slot, like you mentioned. Just a point of note for our viewers: CNN at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, which is Campbell Brown and Anderson Cooper. Together, they don't even match the rerun of Bill O'Reilly at 11 o'clock together.
Just to correct the record, at 9 p.m., Larry King has been holding that time slot, and it
Oh,
looks as if he's going to be replaced.
okay.
And CNN's time slots across the board, Anderson Cooper also at 10 p.m., have been struggling dearly, as their counterparts on MSNBC and Fox News go with more opinion-driven, commentary-based broadcasts. CNN's been going for more of a newsier form, and I think that in a non-election year, it's a very poisonous recipe.
Correct. Well, you just made a really good point. During the election campaign, they had extremely good ratings numbers in the month of November and October of '08. Their numbers have steadily declined, precipitously declined, actually. And
Now, I realize we talk from a certain persuasion politically. How do you feel about having a guy like Elliot Spitzer on a talk show? Now, there are politicians on both sides of the aisle who are disgraced.
Sure,
Let's just say from the right, Larry Craig. Would you be
sure.
giving him a talk show? And do you think that this is an instance where you can forgive somebody and Elliot Spitzer should be allowed to have a second chance in some walk of life? Or do you think that this is just CNN out of desperation trying to pull
It's
a shock jock of sorts?
Exactly. It's CNN out of desperation. Campbell Brown's leaving the network. They're going to need something to spice things up. Their ratings couldn't get any worse, so they might as well throw the dice, try to get back some of their audience that probably they've lost to MSNBC and probably Fox over the last few years. And it's a gamble, but they're at a point where they probably have to do it.
Very interesting. I don't know how many people were watching because it was on Larry King's show, which has been struggling dearly. But changing topics, he interviewed Michael Hastings, the Rolling Stone reporter, which basically somehow was able to take General McChrystal's job away from him. And
Sure.
in interviewing him, Hastings said in response to what he thought the consequences of his article would be, I knew that there would probably be some sort of response. He went on to say, but my sort of thinking was maybe there'll be, 1 or 2 or 3 days, maybe it will create somewhat of a headache for General McChrystal's staff. Goes on to say, but I had no expectation that the general would lose his job after the piece.
Sure.
From a journalistic standpoint, McChrystal gave the access.
Sure.
Nobody's challenged Hastings on his reporting, so it seems as if he
Correct.
stated facts. Do you think he did
Correct.
anything journalistically wrong, given that this is a military situation that he's dealing with?
No, as a media critic, unless it comes out after the fact that he used quotes that were off the record, everything that he was given access to is fair game. It's not the job of a reporter, no matter what his leanings are in his personal life, to act as the public affairs officer for the military. Now, having said that, if he had been given like troop deployment, information or battle plans, of course he would be acting, irresponsibly. But in this case, these were all quotes that McChrystal or McChrystal's, staff repeated to him. It is all fair game and is all information the public should know, as a matter of fact.
And the public very well knows, and the President of the United States knows, and the buck stops with him when it comes to military items, and President Obama certainly
Sure.
made his decision. It was a very interesting. You don't see that interaction too often with the military and the media because oftentimes there isn't a dialogue for this very reason, I think it's fair to say. Moving along, finally, I know you wanted to discuss, Ryan, a New York Times story written by Jennifer Steinhauer titled McCain is Now Running Just to Stay in Place. To give our viewers an overview, the lead goes as follows. He still tells the story about the call he got at 2 a.m. from the woman in Chandler who was upset about changes in her garbage pickup and the ossified joke concerning two Irish brothers boozed up at a bar. Sounds like a pretty condescending
Sure.
intro to somebody who is a pretty well-respected United States Senator, as Senator John McCain, as he tries to seek re-election and is in the midst of a pretty tough primary fight.
Sure, sure. Well, as one criticism of the story, they've already had to issue one retraction on it. And this isn't really uncommon for the Times. As you remember, during the election campaign of '08, they had a hit piece that I would categorize as a hit piece to weaken Senator McCain. And I see the same thing now. He is in a tough primary against J.D. Hayworth, but the Times, I believe, it probably felt like it was an opportune time to weaken Senator McCain, who is a ranking Republican on the Armed Services Committee, make him look like he's in a dogfight, that he's on the defensive, when in fact he'll probably win by 5, 6, 7 points in the primary and come out ahead.
And one of the interesting things in the article was that it says that McCain never mentions Mr. Hayward by name and so far has refused to debate him, yet goes on to talk about and continues to use the word defensive to describe McCain's campaign strategy. To me, that seems somewhat paradoxical.
Correct. Well, it's paradoxical too, is she said that he was unleashing anger on the campaign trail, and I personally believe Senator McCain has conducted himself with the highest respectability after the loss of '08 and in working with President Obama, or trying to work with President Obama on various issues since then.
There's no question that Senator McCain has moved to the right over the past year in
Yep.
the lead up to this primary. And I mean, his views have evolved from saying that he is the maverick to basically dispelling that title.
Sure.
But I don't necessarily see how that translates into what was in this article.
Well, yeah, you're right. He does have to stay a little more conservative, especially with on the immigration front. Arizona's new law is very actually popular within the state. I think 70% of the populace supports it statewide. He's having to posture himself as being in favor of that, a little more tougher than on immigration and on the border than he has been in the past. But I think the Times grossly got the campaign and the story wrong here.
Very interesting. It's a very interesting time in the media. The media sinks a general this week, and the question is, we're debating whether or not they had the impact of that on a U.S. senator up for re-election. Anyway, that's Ryan Williams. Thank you so much for joining us, Ryan, as always.
Thank you. Take care.
And I'm Mike Collins. We'll see you next time.